Namaskar, good morning, and wonderful weekend to all of you. Today, on this session with a very prominent writer from India, we're going to discuss the, the way the leftist ideology enters the minds of youngsters and also adults to some extent. So, the philosophy everywhere is catch them young, and how you can also prevent this kind of ideology creeping into the minds of our youngsters. And this topic is relevant to US, is relevant to India, is relevant to all the major democracies, including Israel. Israel also has a similar problem. The leftist ideology is defeating the concept of Zionism or the pride in the Jewish culture. Same as with India, the leftist ideology is defeating the cream or the ideology of the Vedic culture, which is most of the Hindus follow, or Sanatan Dharma. And in the same problem is in other parts of the world also. So I have this person, a great gentleman, a friend. You have seen his video, last video, and you have really liked it. And I thank you for that. Now, in the second part of the same discussion continuation, we're going to focus on this mindset. So without delay, I would like to welcome Shri Aabhas
Namaste.
Namaste and welcome.
Thank
So
you.
your last video was fabulous, and we had a wonderful
I'm glad to
discussion
know
on
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, continuing on the same pattern, the mindset, because it's all about the mind.
Yeah.
How and in the philosophy everywhere is catch them young. That's
Yes, it
why
is.
that's why I said initially I suggested you that's the title of the video should be catch them young. But
Yes.
uh, I would like to ask you the process of capturing the mindset of the young people with this very vicious leftist ideology. How does that happen?
Yeah. So, as I spoke last time also, that I always see myself as a case study because I have been through the process of, just going into the left fold, and somehow I just could skip out of the left fold and followed the righteous path. And I also don't believe in the concept of right wing very much in India. It doesn't work over here. It's more of a dharmic wing, as Rajiv Malhotra also emphasizes upon. Yes, we are the dharmic people, but what really went wrong with me, or what really goes wrong with the young ones, that they get very easily influenced by the left ideas, or the ideas which is to be very clear anti-tradition, the ideas which are somewhat very anti-nationalism, ideas which are somehow will talk about the globalization, but no globe can be safe until unless the nations are safe. So somehow I will like to ask the question to all the globalization experts, that are they ready to pull down the compound wall of their houses to start off with, when they say that no borders? Can they remove the compound wall of their houses? Can they remove the doors? Can they remove all the safety measures what they have at their houses? No, they can't. So the whole concept, what they are trying to sell out to the young mind, that is globalization, is somehow a uh, very flawed interpretation. They are not able to feed, or they are rather not feeding in a very right direction where it needs to go through. So I do come from an architecture background. I see architecture as one of the liberal art also, and where we read a lot of art movements, and art movements are somehow very much related to the political movements too. So I was speaking about modernism last time, and yes, that is what really gets hold of the young mind. Which young one doesn't wants to be a modernist? Which young one doesn't want to be a rebel? Everyone wants to, that I will bring the change, I will make the change, I will be the change rather. So in this process, somehow the traditionalists, or the people who are speaking for the traditions or the nationalism, have not been very vocal to put across a very good narrative, have failed to put across a very apt narrative which will really attract the young ones. Rather, the leftist or the anti-traditional people have been able to bring in a lot of flaws in the traditional processes, which they bring upon the young minds, and somehow the young minds which are trying to aspire for more of a scientific uh, they look for more scientific answers, and somehow their answers is very accentuating to them, and they find that they are very logical. So, in my case, it was more of the architectural studies, which was very left oriented, where we spoke about everything but not the Indian architecture. I'm sure in the West too, they would be speaking more about the globalization, and they will speaking more about what is against the anti-tradition. They will not talk about the glorious Jewish past. They will just try to diminish it. It will not be taught to you. So somehow, when these teachings don't fall in your ears, you are completely alien to this world. That yes, we have other glorious past too. When you're always told that you were, invaded by someone, you were always the losers. Like in India, we are always taught that we had Alexander the Great, we had Akbar the Great, but no one would put emphasis upon that. Yes, we had Chandragupta Maurya too, and we had a lot of kings from the Gupta dynasty. Samudragupta was a great warrior, and no one will tell you that the first Asian to defeat a European power was not Japanese, but it was someone from the Kerala. So the history somehow is very flawed. The way it is taught is always feed to you with the full of guilt, with a full, virtually full of a lot of regressive thoughts, and it goes on and on. So, touching upon more of the facts about it, that let's pick the subject of architecture itself. As I was going through the same, when uh, when I was taught about the great cities, I was never taught that what a great Patliputra is, but I was always taught about the Chandigarh, which I see that it's though it works so well for the planning, but it's a failed city. Somehow is not able to capture the human emotion. So the academic discourse itself is planned in such a way that you by default will get accentuated towards the leftist ideologies. So that's the initial point about it.
So the left and the right was invented in the French,
Yes.
in the French philosophers. There's some philosophers. I don't want to name them because I categorically sometimes say that the French have invented one of the worst philosophies ever. In fact,
Yeah.
most of the word Islamophobia is also in the French. It's a French invention. That is the French
Yeah.
women protesting against their own Islam. The Muslim women protesting against Islam. That is Islamophobia. But anyway,
Yeah.
coming back to this point, the left, uh, the concept of globalization is dead. Is already dead. Is all
Yeah.
about nationalism now. See
Yeah.
the ideals on which the left, which stood for against monarchy, doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So the left, the purpose of left in a democracy is literally zero.
Yeah. It is
So what do
complete.
you have to say in that? Because there is no reason for left to even exist because
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
democracy.
Yeah.
So when there was monarchy, then left made sense, but now it doesn't make sense at all.
Uh, so if I put my thesis or my understanding to it, that I believe in the concept called liberal. Yes, we have a thing called liberal. So when I look back at my own past, or when I say my own past is my civilizational past, it's all about the liberal ideas. Like when I discussed last time that we were the nation or the Hindu Rashtra back then, which gave the access to all the people who wanted to seek the refuge. Even when whole world was fighting all around, with different religions were fighting for their own supremacy, everyone was trying to prove themselves right. But in our case, we always showed the liberal face, and we somehow give the passage to everyone who ever wanted to seek the refuge. Yes, there were certain conditions, like in the case of Parsis, there were certain conditions. They put the conditions to us. We also put conditions to them. But everything was all about the mutual respect. We all adhered to it. But with the time, what happened is that the so-called left forces try to superimpose their ideas upon us. They blame us for gagging, but they started gagging us. When we started opposing the ideas like ideas of invaders coming in, when then the whole concept of Hindutva changed altogether. Earlier, Hindutva was something which was about the liberalism. Then we understood that we need an evolution. Hindutva now needs to be a force that is going to resist. We will not take in any crap which will come out to us. We will not take in the fact that you're just gonna plunder our wealth. And this kind of what you can say a cultural renaissance which arose among us, it somehow kind of dejected the left badly, and they started calling upon us with even more for force, and it was even their war against the so-called righteous one started becoming even more lethal. Further, in India, we see the Naxal movement was once upon a time a very successful movement. It started when Jamindars were there. Now the Jamindars are gone. There are no more Jamindars, as you likely said. So there is no point of even Naxals being there. We have had a lot of social activists like Sudha Bharadwaj, who is called the Messiah of poor and whatnot. But she was working all her life in the Naxal belt. But she did nothing to really abolish the Naxalism. Why do we need Naxals? It's just a very archaic thing which is existing over there. Even I will wish the Naxals to come into the mainstream and contribute to the infrastructure as I am doing. So, as a whole, there is no use of any kind of left, whether it's extreme or even in terms of idea which is required to exist in the mainstream, when our democracy is giving us the to be liberal towards everything. It's a democracy is always like an umpire which is going to safeguard one who is playing the cricket out there. So in democracy we certainly don't need anything which is left or any such idea.
No, one thing you said, a good example about the left is one point you mentioned. The left in India, it's not needed in any way because the ideology is not needed. The second thing is the Hindutva or Hinduism is not right.
Yeah.
Because Hindutva or Hinduism is the mainstream because it's followed by the majority of the people. That's the
Yeah.
mainstream.
Yeah.
So if you look at Hindutva as a mainstream and left is somewhere on the fringe, the right wing are the terrorists because they are the ones who are working against the state.
Yeah.
So in India, needs to be a redefining what is the right wing. The right wing are the terrorists who take foreign money and foreign
Yes.
ideology to kill the mainstream, which is Hindutva or Hinduism. And
Yeah.
the left wing is the people who are on the fringe, who are working with same utopian idea of opposing the monarchy, which doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Doesn't
No.
exist. So left has no reason to exist. Now it has no reason to exist, but the ideology still remains. So
Yes.
that ideology has to work for something. What is that something they're working for?
See, one again needs to go back and do really some good amount of study. Like, if one sees that the arrest of the, I don't know if many people in USA know about it, but Assistant Officer Sai Baba was arrested way back in 2012, and a lot of a very document was revealed with him, which spoke about a lot of ideas, which all starts with the liberal idea and then starts getting fringe and fringe. Thereupon, it comes with the idea of the so-called coin terms urban Naxals, where the people and the main they will be living among the people in the mainstream, and they will be fulfilling their idea of capturing the state in some way. Like all the institutions, whether you see the schools of history, whether you see a school of philosophy, whether you any kind of school, even engineering schools are no more alien to it. They're all filled over there. So the whole purpose is to really disintegrate the traditional values of the country. It's more about bringing down the mainstream. So wherever they are just trying to bring down the mainstream completely down. Here it's here in India, it's all about the Hindus. Hindus becomes the mainstream. But at large, what did and I do have a thesis that had it not been had India not been a large Hindu state, but had it been a Sikh state just per se, then had they been the mainstream, then they would have pounced upon the Sikh also, because their main idea is always to push upon more of the archaic issues, so that there is always a turbulence among the nation and they can make their bread and butter out of it.
So it all boils down to the money. From
Yeah,
somewhere they are
it is.
receiving, and it's all boils down to the money to control the state resources for their own personal growth or personal ambitions, whatever they have. Now, my
Yeah,
next, yeah,
I just add one thing to it, and I also have a very fringe kind of thought thesis onto it, that I do believe that there must be some very cult-oriented people. I always say that communism is more like a cult, in which Karl Marx is one of the prophets, perhaps the last prophet whom everyone is following. So I do also see is that there is a certain set of people who are following certain cult, who are, it may look very imaginary, but it is perhaps possible, who are just looking day and night to fulfill what Karl Marx had written in his thesis long back. And perhaps that can also be a reason that why they go so fanatic at you. Even when you bring down the rational ideas in front of them, they will not be ready to accept it. They will always have some kind of position or some kind of reservations about what you are saying. So perhaps that too can be true. Who knows that communism actually is a cult?
no, the cult, the definition of the cult is there is a one way in and no way out.
Yeah.
So any philosophy which has one way in and no way out is a cult,
Yeah.
as per the definition. So many now you can put that definition to many of the other ideologies also, which
Yeah.
are banking on the left.
Yes.
So the Arabic ideology is again a very leftist ideology and banking on the left and trying to capture power for
Yes.
their own goal, for their own goal. So that is also a cultish mindset. Now my next question to you is that given the dharmic credentials of this India, the Americans, most of the Americans, when they come to India, they're not impressed by Bombay. They've seen better cities than Bombay in their own countries. They've seen better cities than Delhi. Those are just, for them, it doesn't matter to them. For Americans and Europeans and rest of the world, the places that they love are
Yes.
uh, Jagannath Puri, Vrindavan. These are the places which they come for because that's
Yeah.
where they want to see Mother Ganga and they want to. So at the people level, at the people to people level, the thing which attracts to them is the culture of India. It's
Yes.
it's not about anything else because India is not as clean as the Western countries. It
Yeah.
has many social systems are not as clean as the Western countries,
Yeah.
and this is what they go for. That is the essence for them. Most of the people to India
Yeah.
now, Indians, when they see Indians themselves talking like all this leftist ideology and other things, this is a big downturn for most of the people because they cannot connect to that. They are running away from that.
Yeah.
There's so many ex-Muslims are there in the US. They have big faith into. I know one person. He's a sheriff in Indianapolis, and he's a Muslim, but he's a big devotee of Durga. And
Oh, fabulous.
yeah, and he comes to India not to go to Bombay or anywhere. He goes to Kashi for dhyan on the Ganga.
Yes.
And so this is the attraction. So I do not really understand why leftist ideology is still being sustained in a dharmic country like India, which even others outside, people outside India, not even belonging to the Indian Hindu tradition, they value.
Yeah. See, I have experienced it. So, what I understand from the given situations and scenarios is that it's more of a, perhaps it's very true that India is only the country where the most bashing of own tradition and culture happens. And everyone is so happy to do it. And because of the fluidity and the openness of our dharmic ideas, at times it has fallen upon us as a ban or a sin. What you can say that, like I mentioned previously also, that if I will, I'm told not to enter into the puja room wearing the footwears, then I will not have a very logical answer to it coming from my grandmother in the past. But and there would be very logical answers for something which is very left oriented, which the communists are always ready to shower upon you. So somehow the reinforcement level of the dharmic ideas of late has been very weak. Like in the time of Gurukul system, it used to be very strong. Like a person would be definitely be sent to the Gurukul, where the whole the time he wakes up in the morning, the kind of dincharya what he follows throughout, will embed a lot of dharmic values in him by default. But the kind of urban life we are living in right now, and the way the whole dharmic attributes have been taken aback because of the lack of the Gurukul traditions, in fact, and also because of the lack of a very strong reinforcement being given by the elders about the dharmic values, the ignorance is increasing. And somehow the youth in 20s would find it vogue to bash his own tradition. And even if he's there is nothing on blasphemy in our system. So because even blasphemy is not there, so everything is so cool. Whatever you may call Bhagwan Shiv, whatever you may call any god or any tradition, that way no one is going to run around you with a fatwa or anything like that. So this openness or the adaptiveness of the whole Hindu system or the Dharmic system has somehow let this not exactly evil but malicious forces strong their footings. Their footings, the left footings, have become very strong because they are working with an agenda. A youth at 20 or 18 is not aware of the agenda. What he thinks that, oh wow, something scientific is being given to me, something rational is being served onto my plate. So the platter is full of the rational attributes on their side. So now I believe that the dharmic ideas or the propagators of dharmic ideas needs to come up with a very reinforced kind of situation where it's uh, uh, very strongly put upon the people that these our values are not only in terms of history but also in tradition. We need to talk to our young ones. Hey, you need to go to the temple in the morning. Just you do the basic ritual, and we need to get back to that. It should not be so much awkward to even see it. It should start happening with the time.
Yeah, no, I'm sure the time of the leftist ideology is out. In the US also, there is a group called Antifa, and it's
Okay.
known as anti-First Amendment. So the First Amendment gives a right to all the citizens of US to bear arms and speak freely and all this. They're the Antifa. Now that movement is one of the most violent movements in North America. Now
Okay.
the origins of that is very doubtful because the origins are uh, so US is the largest democracy, but India is the largest democracy in a way, and also oldest also,
Yeah.
because right from Mahabharat time there has been democracy,
Yeah, it is.
and we have never seen any movement against any of the people who were from Dharma point of view. Like
Yeah.
Yudhishthir Maharaj, you never see any uprising against him, even though
Yeah.
he was a monarch. So the purpose of opposing just for opposing doesn't hold ground. Either in the US or in the ancient India, or even in the maybe when Congress was ruling India, that time there was a reason for people to oppose because of their corruption. And
Yeah.
then the left movement, which has to be anti-Congress, is justified.
Yes.
But right now there is no such thing, and I don't see any reason for them to even exist. So why they are still being heard in India? I think the answer you already gave, because of their penetration of the institutions. That's what you say. That's
Yeah.
what you told me. The institutional penetration is too high. So what are the steps that people can do? Because now the left historians, they will always present fake news first because they don't have anything to lie on.
Yes.
So they are going to produce interpretations, and
Yes.
interpretations are subject to discussion or questioning.
Yeah.
But the attitude they have is condescending attitude. They don't want to. They want to. They want to be the one-way communicator.
Yes.
So that means that they're also a cult. It's a big cult.
Yeah,
If
it
you look
is.
at the definition of a cult, is that left is a cult, and so this condescending attitude and a sense of superiority above anyone else, where does that's a mystery to me. Where does that come from? Because they have nothing to be superior, feel superior. In fact, they're
Yes.
very inferior to all of us.
Yes.
So where does that mindset comes from?
See, as I said, that they are already penetrated deep into the institutions and organizations. So when you're young, at the age of 20, or say 18 or 17, when you're entering a school, and there are a lot of professors out there to propagate their left idea. When you go to the school, you either go to the school to become an engineer, an architect, a doctor, and whatnot. and gradually this whole poison or the venom of the left idea is being injected into you in some way or other. They will start talking about socialism and appreciation of Marxism, and it can go haywire. It can go in any direction depending on how vulnerable a student is. So once it starts happening, uh, once it has really been shown upon to the young student, he adapts to this idea very strongly because he doesn't see a reason why not to accept it. Now in the current situation when they're existing, and it's very tough to go on to debate on with them also, because it's a one way communication. They will just say and they will just run off. You are not there. They will not even accept what you're trying to say. So now we need to see that the whole narrative building changes a lot. We need a lot of institutional penetration. I don't believe in creating an alternative institution like, say, JNU is full of left ideas right now. So when JNU is full of left ideas, we need to put in a lot of people who come up with the righteous ideas. Yes, we have quite a few people over there, but we need to be more and more who are going to create counterbalance, staying within the system itself, because no one can snatch up a right of a student to interact with a particular student, a particular professor or the teacher or the instructor. So that the kind of instruction which comes out through the professor or the teacher will automatically start changing the mindset of a student with the time. Right now, say there are 10 professors or 10 instructors, out of them 7 are the left oriented. So that even while they will explain the Ohm's law, they will have some kind of, they will just have a conversation which will just mold through the socialism and whatnot. We want the people, out of those 10, 6 or 7 need to be talking about the righteous path. When they're talking about the physics, they need to quote our ancient rishis. One who is talking about the Fibonacci series, one need to speak about what Fibonacci wrote. He gave attribution to the Rishi Pingala. Though we are calling it Fibonacci series, Fibonacci himself didn't call it. So our mathematicians, that's so true. Fibonacci himself didn't call it, but we call it Fibonacci series. So our mathematicians, our professors and the instructors need to, though not written in the NCERT book or the other books, needs to go a bit off the track, speak about, hey, yes, there was something like that. Calculus was already cooking long back. It didn't come with Newton and Lembis. And the moment this whole idea will start flowing among the young ones, I do believe that they're the innocent ones and the very radical mind based adapted to the changes. The changes can come up very easily to them. So once these ideas will keep on flowing, who doesn't likes to cherish his own culture and tradition? Everyone wants, but we need to hit the right chord, and the right chord is get in more and more instructors, more and more teachers who are with the righteous mindset. And I see that only as the way right now. It's not about the bureaucratic institution, but it's more about the educational system, which needs a refinement. Apart from syllabus, that's who is being recruited, because syllabus can be taken care of, but that is far more important.
It's a vicious cycle because the people who are recruiting from the universities are leftists. So they are not going to recruit anyone mainstream, which is dharmic. And they are not going to go. They're not going to go out of comfort zone because they want to continue producing their foods. So the tree, and so it's a vicious cycle. Somewhere this has to be broken down. So just for, please go ahead. What you're saying, something?
I see that this needs to begin at the school level itself. Like, I come from, I'm alumni of DE public school. And somehow, though I got into the leftist fold, but everyday morning chanting of the Gayatri mantra and ending the day with Shanti Part was a great reinforcing force which brought me back to the dharmic fold. Had I not been exposed to those ideas in my school days, maybe that it would have been tough for me to even, because when I started tracing back my history, the understanding of Sanskrit taken back at what you can say Adi Samaji school, a DE public school, then an Anglo-Vedic, it helped me trace back my roots. So now somehow when the right now what we can see is that the government should be capable enough to pass on instructions where the schools start talking about these basic things. So once the student will be fed with those ideas, then what will be the byproduct? Like out of a school, if 100 students are passing out, even if 80 are able to get those dharmic ideas, they will graduate, they will become postgraduate. This cycle will someday be broken. But this needs to start at a very elementary level. This needs to begin at school itself.
Thank you so much, Aabhas ji. And we will continue this
Thank you.
series. We have many series laid out. The left, it's a phantasmagoria, doesn't exist. There's no reason to exist. And for the
That's true.
viewers, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Veda, Bhagavad Gita, these are all Sattology, not mythology. We should take it out of the mind. There are a lot of eternal truths which the world is following. So if the world is respecting that, why not the people from India or Bharat? And the third thing is to reject that kind of mindset. It creates a fake identity. So when you disconnect people from the real culture of the land, the culture of the land is the Vedic culture of India. That is, if you disconnect from that, anything which goes against that principle is a fake news, and everyone hates fake news nowadays. And so that is the first step in beginning in my discussion with Abbas. So there is no reason for us to continue on that path. With that, I'll end this discussion and I'll give the forum back to Abbasji. Any last words for the audience?
All I see that right now, as you rightly said, we need to really walk out of any left ideas which are running all around, and we need to make sure that the corrections start happening at the school level, because this circle is vicious. It cannot be broken so easily. We need to start working from the foundation and footing level.
Yeah,
So,
I
thank
think
you.
through collective efforts, all of us can achieve that. Thank you so much, Abbasji,
You're
for the
welcome. Thank you.
wonderful discussion and very enlightening and also very deep thought process. So I look forward to all of us watching the third series, which will be very, very interesting. Thank you and namaskar.
Namaskar.